Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time! 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Ayler's gone! Goodbye, touchdown, Indy! Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now!
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Oh. Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Yeah, welcome into Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. I am the coach, Shannon Griffith, subbing in for Jim today. I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying this fine July weather as we motor in through this month and halfway through it almost. And appreciate you joining us here today. Going to have Bob Kravitz join us here in just a few. Talk to him a little bit about some Pacers, some Colts, and things of that magnitude. Colts training camp starts July the 23rd. So we're getting close to that. All the college football media days are in action as well already. The Big 12 has already completed theirs the last couple days down in Frisco, Texas. And saw a couple things that kind of come across the wire the other day, I guess you could say. But Phil Steele, his magazine is kind of the Bible that comes out every year. It's a publication that I've enjoyed for a number of years, but he had the first team, Big Ten, listed there. Indiana had a few on that. Elijah Surratt, Kamara, Fisher, and D'Angelo Pons were on the first team of that list. Carter Smith was recognized on the second team. And then the third team was Mendoza, Hosa Wheeler, portal transfer, as well as Pat Coogan, the offensive center from Notre Dame, is listed in that as well as one of the third team top offensive players. Not too surprised by all of that. I don't think there was anything that I would say was guys forgotten per se in that regard. Sure, you could argue a few here or there, maybe more, but I do think that is pretty good pick of the talent recognition of Indiana's team heading into this 2025 season. On the Pro Football Focus, 3 Hoosiers named, Kamara, Pounds, and Surratt were the top 3 of those in the PFF list of top players. And so you're getting a lot of the different publications coming out. I know Phil still had Indiana in the top 25. He had him at number 16, I believe. And you could probably argue a few of those teams that were in front were not I would say, worthy of where they were picked. But again, preseason rankings, good, bad, and indifferent. It's purely opinion of where a team maybe finished a year ago with what they've got coming back, and people trying to guesstimate where a team may or may not be with all that. When it comes to these first team, second team All-Americans. But it was an interesting dynamic. But if, Phil still has the hardback version as well as the online version. So here's my trusty Bible that I use for the better part of the year. Whoops. Looking up different things and things of that nature. And you'd be surprised how many coaches actually have those documents in their offices, especially anything dealing with a preseason situation as they try to check, validate utilization of names and things of that magnitude. Maybe how some people look at them through eyes that are not in the football world, but they do utilize them and look at them and read them. So don't say, if you hear somebody saying, well, I don't pay attention to that stuff, or I don't read that stuff, I don't think that's a accurate assessment of what guys have in their offices. Football wise, you kind of have to get some of that, because some of the information in there is, things that you may not have thought of. And, or maybe it's not where you think that, they have in terms of their talent level. It does give you a breakdown pretty good of that. He was pretty good with Indiana last year in terms of where he thought they would finish and with the season they would have. And he was probably closest as anyone as predicting Indiana's success last year, offensively and defensively, that led them into that magical year, 11-1 in college football playoffs in that regard. Big 12, of course, is, like I said, their media days have completed. I did see one thing of a 5-star offensive tackle that committed to Texas Tech in a groundbreaking NIL rev share contract with Texas Tech, said to be worth $5.1 million over 3 years. $5.1 million over 3 years. Is to be said the highest ever for a recruit. And again, outcries and discussions all around on that one, being that this young man is yet to step foot on campus. So that's an interesting dynamic. And that's an offensive lineman. I know that he's a 5-star and things of that magnitude, but good for the kid. And I guess in that regard, it's about about $1.5 million per se a year, million and 1.75 a year. It's a pretty good payday for a 18, 19-year-old kid just entering in college. And that, again, like I said, that was for an O lineman. So if they're giving a 5-star O lineman that kind of money, what are they doing for highly rated quarterback, receiver, wide receiver? Who knows? But I found that very interesting. And, one headline coming out of the Big 12, that I found very interesting. And again, I'm not sure if you would label this as, I told you so type of scenario, or not surprised at all. Big 12 coaches claim that they don't know the rules when it comes to rev share and NIL setup. They are confused over the NIL regulations as well as collective bargaining caps, saying that they do not know the rules. Surprise, surprise. Plead ignorance, I guess you could say. Here's a shocker. They believe some programs are already circumventing the cap by structuring side agreements, promises, and front-loaded deals, raising concerns about fairness and legality. So, it's like I said, surprise, surprise, that there are cool programs out there already circumventing the structure and the caps and things of that nature. There are already coaches saying that they were some schools that were maybe not as prepared financially, and some of them maybe did some of these deals prior to any of the rules coming out. You can see the pleading ignorance part is already hitting the fan, so to speak. And well, I didn't know the rules. I thought this was it and that was that. So when you plead ignorance, you think that that's going to be somehow a let you off easy type of scenario. They're also claiming or asking about enforcement mechanisms and whether institutions will be held accountable or penalized. Now they're starting to see a little bit the value of the NCAA, because I do not believe the NCAA is going to have anything to do with this as it pertains to the rev share and NIL compliance things. That is supposedly to fall upon the College Sports Commission and NIL Go, which is the clearinghouse for NIL deals. But the NCAA is not a body that's going to babysit this part of the new era of college athletics. So you can see already right now, things are being a little bit more, unapologetic when it comes to doling out money and such, because one of the big claims too is coaches are the ones, or are alleged to be the ones, that are circumventing the NIL rules by them being the avenue to which money is being doled out from coaches when they build a package per se for a recruit that includes rev share money and the NIL money, which is a big no-no, because NIL money is to be on the outside of the equation, and the coaches or the athletic department cannot have any say-so in that arena when it comes to name, image, and likeness. But we're already hearing the complaining or finger pointing per se come to the forefront. This scenario where some feel that coaches are actively involved in the name, image, and likeness distribution of money than they should be. So that's a kind of a stay tuned one, because I don't know how they're going to govern this. This is the thing that is cart before the horse type of scenario. They get this all done and passed. It's all yippee and patting on the back. But at the same time, there were no defined guardrails when it came to some of these new rules, or I guess new ways of doing business when it comes to NIL and rev share. And it's an interesting dynamic, because I'm not sure, like I said, how is the College Sports Commission going to legislate this? There is no collective bargaining wing for the players. You've kind of divulged everything into the hands of the athletic programs as well as the coaches, and they're left to fend for themselves as how they interpret these things. So it is a dynamic that I think bears watching as we push through the month of July and head closely to the start of the season. It's one of those things that I just think it's going to be an interesting dynamic with everything that's being said with that. Well, we're going to get things kicked off. We got a good deal today. Bob Kravitz is going to join us here shortly. I'll talk a little bit about the Pacers, maybe the Miles Turner scenario there, and also look in and peek into the Colts and what's in front of them. But before we do all that, we're going to take a break. We'll see you right when we get back here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Welcome back to the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, subbing in again for Mr. Jim Coyle, who's enjoying a couple days of rest and relaxation. Bob, how are you doing this morning?
Well, what has he done to deserve that? Has he ever taken a day off from this show? That's my question.
I couldn't tell you. He had said something to me last week about, would I be up to, setting in for him a couple days.
Oh, awesome.
And I said, well, I'll do anything that you need me to do, helping you out, whether it's, subbing for a day here or there. So I texted him on Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday morning or Monday evening. I can't remember the day, but I said, just let me know if you need me this week. And he says, yeah, this was Tuesday about 8 o'clock. He goes, yeah, I could use you. You want to come on today at 8:45 and take over? I said, well, I can do it.
Sounds like Jim Coyle being an organized human being.
I said, I can do it. Maybe flying by the seat of my pants, but I think I can get through it, having done some radio before, but
okay.
More than happy to set in for Jim. And like you said, I'm not sure when he has taken some time for just recharging his own batteries as he gets into a part of the year where you like to take a little time, as you well know.
Absolutely. I'm leaving for the not that our listeners care, but I'm leaving for the New Jersey Shore on Saturday for a week. So
oh wow.
I don't need to recharge my batteries. I don't do anything anyway.
You're beyond those days.
Yeah, I'm semi-retired,
Yeah.
Still write a couple of columns here and there, but it's not a lot of heavy lifting. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Well, we're gonna talk about a couple columns that you had out, and one being the Miles Turner article that you had on Substack, Took the Money and Run type of deal, kind of a really good breakdown of, the business of college basketball, the business of NBA basketball, and, loyalty. What does that mean?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Were the Pacers being loyal to Miles Turner when they extended DeAndre Ayton an offer sheet?
Yeah.
Were they being loyal to him when they had him on the trade block? Seemed like every year. No. And Rick Carlisle made it very clear what happened after Kevin Pritchard made it clear a couple of days earlier that they made him this offer in Milwaukee and said, look, take it or leave it. Don't shop it. this is the number. If you want this number, take it now. Because I heard that like shortly after he got this offer from Milwaukee, he accepted like within 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, clearly he was looking for an alternative. I mean, obviously he's looking for the payday. I mean, this is going to be probably his last significant payday. But no, he doesn't owe anybody any explanations, no apologies, nothing. And while I'm sure he'll get booed when he comes back to Indianapolis, I hope it's not significant.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was surprised with this one that he had been with Indy for 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
That's really unheard of in the NBA or any sport for that matter, to be a player that has lasted that long and with one organization.
Right.
It's very hard to keep the parties happy in something like that, but for whatever reason, they were able to do that.
Well, Milwaukee went to great ends to make this happen. I mean, they stretched and waived Damian Lillard, which is like $23 million over the next couple of years, like per year over the next couple of years. I think it's 3 years. So they got a lot of dead money, and yeah, they added Miles Turner, but no Damian Lillard. And we don't know what we don't know. What we need to do is hear from Giannis Antetokounmpo just what he makes of this and whether it impacts his desire to return.
Well, right. You talked about, Milwaukee's kind of an aggressive move in that regard for a 4-year, $107 million contract for, a veteran at that. And just like you said, probably his last swing of things as it pertains to him in the NBA. That to me says that there was some cap strategicness here with Milwaukee and what they did with their strategy. How do you think they handled, did with that from the front office aspect and things in a very difficult era of cap issues and things of that magnitude? Because I don't think anybody I still don't understand
Yeah, I don't completely understand it either. And I've been doing this for almost 50 years. No, look, Milwaukee felt like it had to try a home run swing to keep Antetokounmpo. And, I think they were willing to stretch and waive Lillard. And the Pacers had an idea that one or two teams might have the cap space to grab Miles Turner. They did not suspect that it would be the Milwaukee Bucks. And the shame of it is the Bucks didn't even give the Pacers an opportunity to do a sign and trade, which would have taken a lot of the sting out of this transaction because, they lost him for nothing. And any way you slice it, you take a guy who's that elemental or that important to your team, such an important element. That's devastating. The only thing that cuts some of the devastation is the fact they're not going to be a great team next year because you don't have Halliburton.
Yeah, right. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but I guess that's kind of where I think this maybe stings a little bit in the eyes of the fans. Is just how you put it out. Is Milwaukee kind of gave him the ultimatum: either you want or you don't. We're not going to, sit around, negotiate, or try to work something out with the Pacers. It's either yours or you don't. So I guess in that decision you think this was a personal decision for him or practical decision in some ways?
Well, I think both. I look, having been in my business, and I'm sure this is true for you as well. We all like to be wooed. We all like to be told that we're loved and that we're valued. And here was a guy who, for the better part of 10 years, was always watching the Pacers try to move on from him. And now here comes the Milwaukee team with Giannis Antetokounmpo saying we think you're an elite talent and we're ready to pay you. The question I have is, did the Pacers lowball him initially?
Yeah.
We don't know the number. Doyle had a number. I had a number. They were different numbers. So, it's entirely possible we're talking to two different people. But all I know is it was lower than that 4-year 107. How close it came, I don't know for a fact. But, yeah, if you're Miles Turner, I'm not sure there's a lot of debate internally.
Yeah.
I really don't.
No, you can't fault the man for getting paid. I mean,
No.
that's the thing. And to say that, he did or did not want to stay in Indy, I don't think anyone knows the answer to that, because like you referenced there earlier, we don't know what was put on the table from Indy.
Right.
Because it may have been insulting.
It may have been. He
know.
may. I'm sorry, I keep going out of the picture.
That's all
He
right.
may have looked at that number, whatever it was. I was told it was, in the 20s, 22, somewhere in there per year. If he saw that number and said, I'm open to whoever comes across and makes me an offer.
Right.
If they come in at 25, let's just say, if they come in at, somewhere close, maybe he doesn't even look at it. Maybe it's just a done deal, and he resigns in Indiana. But this is devastating for them.
Oh yeah.
Whether they're going to make the playoffs next year is an open question. But as Kevin Pritchard said the other day, I like when people write us off, and they were written off most of last year, certainly during the playoffs against Cleveland and New York and Oklahoma City for sure. So, I think they're going to struggle next year for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of alluded to a little bit of this early on in the conversation, but you got Indy having this magical postseason run. And like you said, there's nobody that ever figured that they would get to the finals. They've been to the conference finals here and there and, come up short, but to get to the NBA finals and then take Oklahoma to 7 games. I mean, I don't think there's anybody and their brother that could think that was going to happen or occur. But then in that arena, you lose Halliburton in that last game and find out this week that it's confirmed he's not for next year, going to be out. And then you get punched in the nose again by losing Miles Turner. And I know there probably some sentiment out there that, he was such a streaky player, he was either good or bad or vice versa. But what is the Pacers' next step in all this?
Center by committee, basically. You've got, I think Isaiah Jackson, he's coming off the injury, off the what do you call it? The Achilles?
Yeah.
Just like everybody else. And Jay Huff, I think, is an intriguing guy. He's a good shooter from distance. He's very athletic. He's a rim protector. I don't know that he's a rim protector as elite as Turner was, but there's a reason why he hasn't played very many games his first couple of years in the NBA. And then I think, James Wiseman, they'll take a flyer on him. And Tony Bradley, who's probably going to be the fourth man in that rotation. But look, if they can get 15-7 from that group and get decent rim protection, then I think they can spell Miles to a degree, but more offensively and rebounding wise than on the defensive end.
Yeah, and and losing Halliburton as well. I think you alluded to some of the possibilities in that equation with the center by committee, but it does really reshape the identity of this team heading into, next year in the Eastern Conference landscape, in terms of without Miles Turner and without Tyrese Halliburton. It really does.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
And, you don't even know stylistically if they're going to be able to play the way they played last year, the up tempo and, pressing 94 feet. I don't know if they'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because Tyrese established the tempo so beautifully and so insistently that I don't know that anybody can really replace him in terms of establishing pace.
No question on that one. And he was such a magical player in the playoffs. It was just like,
I've never seen anything like it, Shannon.
Oh, I know.
I don't know that any of us who've been on this earth for a really long time can remember one playoff run where one guy hit more out of this world shots. I mean, if I have one enduring memory from the playoff run, it would be the shot against the Knicks in, I think it was game 1, when it hit the back of the rim, bounced way up high in the air and fell through, and Halliburton gave it the choke sign.
Yeah.
It was a premature choke sign.
Yeah, right.
But they ended up winning, so no harm, no foul.
Yeah, no question. No question. Magical run for the Pacers. You get punched in the nose, losing the two key individuals, I guess, and we'll have to wait and see what all happens through the summer months here in terms of what they're able to piece together for next season. But again, they'll find some way to put the foot forward on all that, and we'll see what all happens with that. We're going to take a break here real quick, come back and get you for another segment here, talk a little bit about the Colts. I want to talk about Jim Irsay. I don't know if that's been discussed and, some of that, but I'd like to talk some of that because of your history there as well. But stay right here. We'll be right back right after this on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's C-O-Y-L-E, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Here with Bob Kravitz. I am the coach Shannon Griffith, subbing in for Mr. Jim Coyle again today. And appreciate y'all being here, and appreciate Bob for coming on and staying for 2. I appreciate that as well. Feel kind of special.
I assume it will be reflected in my paycheck.
Yeah. It's just like mine.
Maybe an extra gift card.
I hope we get some Hard Truth, right?
That'd be fine with me.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get some hard truth and everything like that. But Colts training camp gets started here July the 23rd.
Right.
And of course, this past spring, Jim Irsay unfortunately passed away, and be the first year without him at the helm, and the daughters have stepped in, it looks like, to run the show, or it appears that's what's going to happen, I'm assuming. Yes. But you got a nice thing on your Substack too, and about the relationship that that you had with Jim. Why don't you kind of share some of that? Because he didn't fit the typical billionaire stereotype.
No, not at all. He was the kind of guy that you like to hang out with. He was just a sweet, very cool human being, incredibly big-hearted. Whenever I would write something about somebody in need, I would get a call from Pete Ward, Jim Irsay's right-hand man, and he'd say, "What can Jim do to help?" And sometimes that was providing the private plane to somebody who was dealing with cancer and wanted to go to a football game down in Daytona. He was incredible that way. And, most owners, an NFL team is just part of their portfolio, their business portfolio. That's not to say that Jim didn't have any other businesses, but football was his business. And I think among NFL owners, he probably understands the game as well as, if not better, than anybody else. He grew up in the business just in the same way that the three daughters have done so, where they've been part of the process really since they're very young and have come up through the ranks with the Indianapolis Colts.
Well, yeah, you could say that each one of them, Jim included, and then of course his children, they grew up on the job, so to speak.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Jim learned from his father, who had a big personality as well. That was
he learned what not to do from his father.
Yeah. Well,
it was very important to him to not make the mistakes that his father made.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, they both had substance abuse problems. Those never went away, unfortunately. But gosh, the guy tried. I mean, he was in and out of rehab. He tried his damnedest, but the drugs and everything else just got him over time. And we're the same age, and God knows I don't take care of myself, but he looked a lot older than me the last time I saw him, and I didn't have a very good feeling about his long-term prospects, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no question. That was a complex life. Stepping into the big shoes that he was stepping into, of his father running the organization at that time.
Right.
And you had talked, these complex issues that he had with addiction and things of that magnitude, those started way before he took over the Colts.
Oh, yeah.
These were things that were, being a part of his daily habits back when it was. I mean, the guy in his younger days was pretty bulked up when he hit the weight room, and he was, a pretty big specimen.
He was a power lifter, and I think that's part of the reason why he had so many physical issues later in life, is he was a heavy lifter. I'm sure, based on the people he was hanging out with at the time, that performance enhancing drugs were being used. And I mean, by the end, poor Jim couldn't walk on his own. He was on a wheelchair or a motorized scooter or a golf cart getting around. And boy, for 65 years of age, that's too damn early to be living that kind of life.
Yeah, I heard one individual compare his age at 65 and the way he looked and some of the, ailments that he had, especially with hips and knees and things of that nature. I mean, he looked maybe 85.
Yeah,
60,
he did.
He
did. Yeah, it was a shame, but just a really wonderful guy. And we always used to give him crap because he always carried $20,000-$30,000 cash in his briefcase, and we're like, "What are you doing? Aren't you like begging for somebody to rip you off?" He's like, "No, I just like giving away money." And of course, I had my hand out. No,
of course.
But he liked taking care of the waitress who gave him good service at the local restaurant. He just liked taking care of of a homeless person he came across, or somebody in some kind of need. He would read the paper, or he would check out the internet and see somebody in need, and he sprung right into action almost without fail.
Yeah, and you talked about this, and not too many people realize. You talk about the philanthropical aspects of him in that and everything, and his cultural influence. Public art exhibits, free concerts.
Yes.
He really went out of his way to deepen the ties of the hometown where his football team was playing in Indianapolis. He did a great job of that aspect of things, of being involved and having a hand in some of the community ties with the Colts.
Well, to me, the most important legacy he lives is kicking the stigma. The mental health initiative that has already helped countless people in our state and around the country deal with mental health issues. And that's something that's incredibly important to Jim. And we've had lots of long discussions about it. He's dealt with it. I've dealt with it. We've all got something we're dealing with. And, again, I think that's the legacy he's going to leave, that's going to last well beyond that Super Bowl in 2006.
Yeah. And, the other thing outside of, you talk about kick the stigma, that was a resounding success, as far as the NFL is in bringing awareness to the forefront. And then we'll jump off of this and talk a little bit about the Colts and training camp here, but what do the daughters face now in running a NFL football team? Because there's two daughters? Three daughters.
Three daughters. Well, look, I don't think this is anything that they're not ready for. I think they can handle whatever comes their way, but this is an inflection point, because this is the 10th year of Chris Ballard. And Carly made it clear that it hasn't been good enough. I mean, you go 9 years without winning the AFC South, which is not exactly, a great division. That's embarrassing. So the first thing is going to be deciding, at the end of this season, whether to hold on to both Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, or moving on from one and not the other. Carly's got some big decisions facing her if they don't have a really good season, and I suspect that they're not going to.
Yeah, and many were surprised how long they've held on to some of the front office there with Indianapolis, and that probably had a lot to do with Jim's big heart.
Yeah, look, at the same time, he did fire Frank Reich in the middle of the season, so his heart wasn't that big back then. I just think, I'm sure that his health problems, he probably wasn't as proactive as you would normally expect him to be, as he dealt with his issues. So I think Ballard was able to take advantage of that and get some extra time.
Well, yeah, and of course, again, like you said, when you're kind of a little bit in limbo of what may be coming, sometimes change can really throw a curveball more so than you were thinking, because of everything that's occurring within the organization as opposed to that one segment. But like I said, training camp coming up the 23rd of July. This is where I start getting my blood pressure up, I guess, a little bit. I've never been I wasn't a big Anthony Richardson fan when they drafted him at that time. I understood what he showed, potential upside. Here's a big, powerful quarterback that, was mobile, could be elusive when needed to. The problem was his accuracy was not great, even in the college ranks, and only played at, I think, 18 total college games. Now,
Right.
So you got to say that now that the quarterback position is wide open when they bring in Daniel Jones, who had let's just face it, he struggled in New York. Again, not an easy place to go play as a rookie on the grand stage in New York. And, coming out of college and such, that's a pretty big, tall task for a rookie anyway. But you got him, who is probably a much better passer than Anthony Richardson is. And then they draft Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. So talk a little bit about, what this camp is going to be involved with when they hit the field come the 23rd.
Well, it's certainly make or break for Anthony Richardson. The first question that has to be answered is, can he stay healthy long enough to get through training camp? Which sounds like a ridiculous question, but every time we think he's in the clear, something goes on with that shoulder of his. It's like the Andrew Luck thing all over again. Look, Daniel Jones had a moment in New York. He was never surrounded by much. At the same time, he did get beat out by Tommy DeVito. So how good can he be exactly? So that's why I don't think they're going to have much of a season, because I think that whole thing, the whole old saw holds true. If you have two quarterbacks, you have none.
Well, yeah, especially if you're trying to find one of them to be the guy, right?
Exactly.
Were you surprised that they didn't try to keep Flacco or
no, because Flacco, they needed somebody who could really challenge Anthony Richardson. They didn't want a stopgap. They wanted somebody Daniel Jones is the perfect guy for this particular role, because he's good enough that he's gonna press Richardson, but he's probably not good enough to actually beat Richardson out. We'll find out here in the next couple of months. It's going to be nuts down there, because every time one of those guys sneezes, somebody's going to write it down in their notebook. I mean, every time a guy plays catch with one of his wide receivers and it's a bad pass, that's going to be documented somehow, way, shape, or form.
Well, you brought into it. I guess the question I have is it still the, are they going to evaluate this on performance or the potential aspect of things? Because right now it's been potential.
I think they're out of the potential business. I think they want and need somebody who's going to lead them to a playoff spot, or everybody else is going to get their walking papers. So I don't think they're taking any more chances with Anthony Richardson. I don't think they give a damn about what's in the future. I think they care about what they got now, and they need a quarterback. Look, they surrounded him with some guys now. I mean, they adding Tyler Warren, adding two guys, Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum, to the secondary. I think outside of quarterback, this is a better football team. But if you don't have the quarterback, you got nothing. You got no chance, unfortunately.
Yeah, Warren was a big pickup, and what he will give them, I don't know if it's immediate or not. We'll see. He was sure fantastic at Penn State with what he was able to do. And I can see Shane Steichen, utilizing him, in a way that you could put him in tight. You can put him off the line of scrimmage. You could spread him all the way out on the other side as a wideout, for that matter, because it gives you that flexibility. The one criticism I've always had of the Colts, I just never really felt they had that vertical threat that they needed for a long while, to really push the ball down the field.
Oh, yeah, Anthony. They got Pierce now, Alec Pierce.
Right.
So they have that. I think I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I think
ahead.
they need for him to break out this season. I thought he showed some signs last year, but he still catches 30, 40 balls a year. he needs to be much more productive than that.
No question. I mean, I like him as well. And, you know, that what I was trying to get at was with the vertical presence there for a while, it wasn't as much. It wasn't as much as a quarterback that could get the ball downfield with some accuracy. It was more or less, they didn't really have that speed there to get it. Now they've got somebody that can threaten down the field. Tyler Warren can threaten down the field middle, especially up against a linebacker. Anthony's problem was sometimes he'd throw it all the way to the other end zone.
Right.
He was, you know, such a strong arm and not able to have it in a way that could be productive in that regard. But, you know, hey, again, a year smarter, maybe understanding things a little, it will really determine how well he prepared this offseason.
Right. This is the ultimate referendum on Anthony Richardson. I mean, he got benched last year because he wasn't taking things quite as seriously as he should have. If that didn't smack him upside the head, I don't know what will. But you would hope that he would come back a smarter and more, more grown up version of himself. You know, you need to be a CEO of an organization when you're the quarterback. You can't be anything less than that. And over the course of time, he's been far less than that. So he needs to take a giant step forward.
No question. And again, like you said, we're out of the potential business. It's time for the performance business to take over at that position. And, you know, Daniel Jones, I guess, will provide that competition. I do think Riley Leonard will be one of those guys as well. I think what Leonard brings to the table, consistency under center, ability to throw the football with some accuracy, pretty good arm. I wouldn't say he's has a strong arm per se, but I do think he has an arm that lends itself, when you have accuracy, to being a top tier quarterback, especially in the NFL. You've got to have an accurate thrower with all this. You know, the other question I wanted to get to you too in all this is, with this, I guess, dynamic with Anthony Richardson, I do think it really impacted the locker room last year. And maybe divided it to a degree.
No doubt.
And that's never good to have that in your locker room with everything. Now bringing in, Riley Leonard as a draft pick, you bring in Daniel Jones, and that really was the message. You're going to get beat out if you're not prepared.
Right.
And what do you think with all this? How does this either enhance the locker room and brings back the continuity, or does it further divide because of what the Colts did in the offseason?
I think the important thing here is, they let this roster turn stale last year. There was not a lot of competition at spots they thought they had handled, and a lot of guys, as a result, underachieved. So I just think it's important that they have real open competition at a lot of key positions. You'd love to go into every year knowing who your quarterback is going to be and who your running back is going to be and your edge rusher. But I think for the culture of this team, the culture got real stale last year. And when they made the decision to bench Anthony, I can promise you a portion of that locker room was thrilled, and a portion of that locker room was aghast.
Yeah.
So you would hope that they could unify behind Richardson. You would hope they could unify behind Jones. But the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see what they look like this preseason. I would suspect both will see a lot of playing time during the preseason, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, and, I think when they took Anthony, I think the mindset of the Colts front office and Steichen was kind of a long-term philosophical approach that they were going to look at what he gave them potentially, as opposed to being overly critical early on in his career. Now that's on the field wise, right? That's the field aspect of it. His problem, outside of that was more off the field because he wasn't doing the things necessary to be an NFL quarterback when it comes to studying film, understanding defenses as complex as the defenses can be in the NFL. And, you know, he was a kid that just kind of winged it. And that's the one thing that they had to kind of beat upside his head was that, look, man, you're not going to fool anybody in the NFL.
He had to learn how to be a pro.
Yeah.
And that's something he didn't come prepared with coming out of Florida. And again, you know, this is not something that you or I will ever know, but to be that physically gifted, you know, you must feel like you can do anything just with the force of your physical gifts. And you get to the NFL and you find out everybody's got your gifts. You know, maybe not quite to the extent that Anthony has them. I mean, he was tested as the best athlete ever at the quarterback position at the combine. But, you know, you get here and you find out everybody's really good, and it's in the margins. It's doing the little things that makes the difference in whether you're a success in the NFL or not. And he wasn't doing those little things, and you hope that the light has come on.
Yeah, a big light. Well,
very big.
Couple of things here before I let you go. Enjoy talking to you. Bob Kravitz here with us this morning. We're talking some Colts now, but what do you think other position-wise do you think the Colts are? I mean, offensive line, you think they where they need to be there?
I'm a little concerned about the right side of the right guard. You know, they're not totally established there. I think they have an improved team overall outside of the quarterback position. I think their secondary is going to be much better. I think Lou Anarumo coming in as defensive coordinator is going to make a real significant difference. You know, I mean, obviously Jonathan Taylor is still an elite back.
Yeah.
You got, excuse me, morning. Yeah, you've got, you know, a pretty nice wide receiving core, assuming Pittman comes back healthy. And I think it's a fair assumption. And now adding Warren to that group, I think they'll be a better team. Just got to see about the quarterback.
Yeah, and again in the NFL, you got to score points. There's no question about that, but it still comes down to defense, and that's the one area that I do think that Indianapolis improves some over a previous year on the defensive side of the ball. Do you feel they're ready to take that next step defensively, where they can be again that dominant defense?
Well, not that big of a jump. I mean, they're 28th in the league last year?
I believe so.
Yeah, 28th in overall defense. So that would be a hell of a jump to get up into the top 10. I think they could be a middle of the road defense, you know, 15th, 16th, 17th in there. I still have some issues with the defensive line. They got run over last year by a lot of teams. So look, I think they'll be better in the secondary. You know, I'm not so sure about linebacker, but you know, for them to take a step up, I think it'll be an incremental step up and nothing too significant.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm kind of the Colts optimist. I do think that, you know, every year spring's eternal, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But I do think, again, I just don't know how long you can go with Anthony Richardson before you just move on in some respects. I think they've given him enough opportunity and time, and if he comes out of the summer not in that top tier, being the number one guy, then I just, you know, maybe times to look for other opportunities for him elsewhere, but we'll see on that. But hey, before I let you go, did you see, as you're a hockey fan as much as I am, that Columbus got a single A hockey team? The Indiana Sentinels will be dropping the puck this year down in Columbus, Indiana.
What league?
The FPHL, the Federal Prospects Hockey League.
I thought you were going to say the federal prison. I thought it'd be like that.
Well,
like
it could be that. It could be some of that. But
that's great, man. The more we could plant the seeds of hockey in our hockey lacking state, that would be great.
Well, you got 4 teams now because you got Evansville in the SPHL. You've got the Columbus team, the Indiana Sentinels. Of course, the Fuel and the Comets are in that AA tier of hockey with the ECHL. So we're getting there. And I know you had an article a while back on whether Indy was ready to be an NHL city. I advise if anybody's a hockey fan, go look at that on Bob's Substack there, because he's got a lot of great articles there. And but I appreciate you being here with me for a couple seconds this morning, Bob, and have a great time on the have a great time on the Jersey Shores, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, man. You take care. Enjoy. Have a good show today.
All right, partner. See ya. Bob Kravitz joining us here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. And remember, thanks to all the stations that you can hear us on, 1380 The Fan, my home station up here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They are a big part of my listening day, I guess you could say, as we go along. Then the Ref down in Evansville, 97.7, where they have, like I was telling Bob, they have the Evansville Thunderbolts, I believe is what their names are. But I might be wrong on that one. But the hockey there in Evansville as well. And then, of course, up in the region area, WJOB. So thanks to all those listeners as well. And thanks again to Bob Kravitz. We're going to step aside. We're going to take another break here. We'll come back to the Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after these messages.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio for a Thursday. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, subbing in for Mr. Jim Coyle, enjoying some time off as I agreed to help him out this week and jump back into the saddle of doing some radio as well as the YouTube version of the show. So I enjoy doing that. And again, I used to do some radio up here on 1380 The Fan for the Sports Rush with when that was rolling. But appreciate you all joining us here as well today. A big thank you to Bob Kravitz. And, you know, if you do have a chance, get over to his Substack. He's got some great things there. Still a great writer. great opinions on things. And, I've always respected him and his columns that he would put out over the years. And I do think that he's one of those top-notch guys in the world of sports media. And being that he's retired now, you have to go to Substack and get some of that as well. But rolling in here into the second hour, and we're talking a little bit more about preseason polls. And we talked earlier about Phil Steele's preseason rankings for first team, second team, which the Indiana Hoosiers are well represented there again this year. A little bit more per se than last year, because everybody knows a little bit more about Mr. Coach Cignetti and his crew there in Bloomington. But this year, his top 10 or top 25, we'll break it down that way. Number one, first thing, he has Indiana at number 16 in his poll, which I do think were maybe the best Indiana shows in the top 25, or at least that's what I've seen, because I've seen them ranked 18th, 19th, and then in the 20s in some polls, which I thought were, bad in terms of how people view that. But again, Indiana still has to maintain what they've done in the previous year, last year, being an 11-1 college football playoff team. I know their win total over and under this year is 8.5. That's a pretty big number, but not out of the realm of possibility with way they start off the season. And Old Dominion is not going to be a walk in the park. They're a good, solid football team from out there in the I think they're in the Sun Belt or Conference USA. I can't remember, but a very, very big matchup week one versus Old Dominion. Now, should the Hoosiers win that game and win it in a fashion that we think they should? Oh, most definitely. But there's always those teams like Old Dominion that has a tendency to come in and shock the world week one. And that's what Indiana is going to have to guard against. But we know that Coach Cignetti's approach to things and his fast, physical, relentless style that he preaches quite frequently will have Indiana prepared no matter who lines up across from them week one or week 11 or 12, however you want to look at it. He always had them prepare a year ago. But Old Dominion will be a good test for that first game. Kennesaw State comes in that I believe it's week 2. You have Indiana State on the docket as well. Coach Kurt Mallory there at Indiana State, a former coaching colleague of mine at Ball State. Is that where we both got our first full-time coaching job at Division I there at Ball State University under former Indiana head coach Bill Lynch. And he'll bring the Sycamores into Bloomington, which I think is always nice to see a Mallory on the sidelines in Bloomington Stadium. Kurt, of course, a very well-respected coach, person within the college ranks, and does live up to the Mallory name in that sense. But looking at Phil Steele's top 10 that he has released, and I was kind of surprised with some of his selections. He has Penn State listed as his number 1 team heading into this year. Of course, they've got a great quarterback in Drew Aller. James Franklin, again, what he's done at many different places. He has done good things at Penn State. The problem is he just hasn't won the big one. And I know that's the one thing that eludes him in college there at Penn State is the fact that he has not won the big one. But Drew Aller back, you got Singleton, Katron Allen, a good player. So he had them listed as number 1, which I don't know if anybody wants to chime in with that aspect of it, of having Penn State number 1. He has Notre Dame number 2. So his first two picks to me were a little bit, I don't know, surprising. Notre Dame's going to be breaking in a new quarterback. Now they've got the running back that broke the hearts of Indiana's faithful with that 99-yard touchdown run in the college football playoffs. He's a tremendous athlete. But they will be breaking in a new QB there in South Bend for Marcus Freeman. But got to appreciate the fact that Marcus Freeman got him to the promised land a year ago, and now the expectation is to continue that step of having Notre Dame in the college football playoffs every single year, even though they are an independent, and even though that's something that bothers me a little bit, because I do think at times Notre Dame is, I don't know, given a pass per se with that aspect of things. I always thought Notre Dame needed to go undefeated to get into any type of playoff scenario, just from the standpoint of them not being in a conference. And one could argue that their strength of schedule may not be the best at times, but I don't think any question right now, you cannot say that Notre Dame is a real good football team. Number 2, though, I'm not quite sure on that one. Texas and Alabama at 3-4. That doesn't surprise me as much, because I thought maybe they would be a little bit higher. DeBoer in his second season there in Tuscaloosa, a big season for him, for Kellen, a big season. I know he's a friend of the show with Jim. In his time at Indiana, he did Indiana right when he was making all the play calls and such. But a big thing for him this year is to ward off the missteps they had a year ago, like losing to Vanderbilt. And then they lost to Michigan in the bowl game. So 9-4 and 5-3 in the SEC is not a recipe of success for Alabama fans, but we'll see what happens there. They've got that talented running back, Jam Miller. He's a really good player. Of course, they've got the big time wide receiver, Ryan Williams, who came on the scene like gangbusters last year. Number 5, he's got Ohio State. Ryan Day and crew will also be breaking in a new starting quarterback this year, and Indiana does not have them on the schedule. Number 6 is Clemson. Again, Cade Klubnik is the one that I think has been the guy that they feel is going to get them to the promised lands. He did have over 3,600 yards passing a year ago and 36 touchdowns, but I do think he's has a tendency to make some critical mistakes in the critical games that Clemson will face. There's no question they'll be one of the tops in the ACC. They are at number 6 in all of his rankings for Phil Steele, and with the new defensive coordinator, Tom Allen is now at Clemson. I do think that addition to Dabo's staff was an improvement. And I do think, Tom is in his element running a defense, and I do think that he'll do a great job there. There was some surprise that he left Penn State and went to Clemson, but there's a tie there to Dabo that really was a key aspect of that one. Number 7 in Phil Steele's top 10, Georgia. Again, the Dogs are always going to be a contender now, if they've kind of taken over that top seat in the SEC that Alabama was occupying for the number of years that they occupied. But, they lose Carson Beck. He's now at Miami. And Gunnar Stockton, the young kid that came into the bowl game after the injury, he did a pretty good job. But we'll have to wait and see where he's at. The big surprise for me in his top 10, outside of the fact that he had Penn State, Notre Dame 1-2, is he has number 8, Oklahoma. Their first season in the SEC was a rough one. They were 6-7, 2-6 overall. Of course, they had some key wins last year, beating Alabama. We now have Dana Holgorsen there. No, I'm sorry. Dana's at Nebraska. I apologize for that one. Got ahead of myself. But they got a transfer in at quarterback from Washington State, John Matter, 3,100 yards last year. But again, a 6-7 team in the top 10. I'm not quite sure on that one. Number 9, Texas A&M, year 2 there for Mike Elko. Again, a lot of really good players as they have Marcel Reed at quarterback. He is a talented kid, and they have their 2 top rushers back in Levon Moss and Amari Daniels. And then rounding out the top 10, again, a little surprised with this one was Florida, and make or break year there in Gainesville for Billy Napier and staff. We'll have to wait and see. They got a receiver from UCLA, the J. Michael Studevant, and their leading rushers back from last year as well. So the top 10 for me and Phil Steele's poll, a little surprising on some of the teams there. Again, these are opinions, not, overly stated facts, but the aspect of who he has in the top 10 was a little bit surprising. I don't know how the chat room feels with that top 10. When you look at their next level of teams, you got LSU at 11, Michigan at 12, 13 is Oregon. There's another surprise. I thought they would be in the top 10. Miami at 14, Arizona State at 15, Indiana is at 16, Illinois at 17. So that's a unique mix-up there. Arizona State ahead of Indiana. Not quite sure on that one. But, again, Indiana pretty high in Phil Steele's poll as it pertains to college football, the college football scene. And, again, these are all big opinions in that regard. So we'll have to wait and see. Again, I mentioned this yesterday, Coach Cignetti on the Dodd list for the top coaches in the country. I don't think that is surprising to anyone, especially us here in the Hoosier State, and what he's done in year 1. And of course, his background of being a winning coach at every place he's been. I don't think there's any question that he doesn't deserve that accolade and things of that nature when it comes to being a name to watch on the Dodd list for College Coach of the Year. We're going to step aside, take another break. When we come back, we'll talk Big Ten Media Days. And also, as we move towards that end of the show, we'll talk a little bit about the top 5 Indiana Hoosier players to watch in 2025. All right here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We'll be right back right after this.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Hello, everyone. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you, as always, for listening to our content. But for more in-depth coverage on the Indiana Hoosiers football, basketball, and recruiting news, go to thehoosier.com on 3. Now with On 3 and great national writers like Ari Wasserman, Andy Staples, and Steve Wiltfong for football. Pete Nakos, J.B. Shaw, and Joe Tipton's constantly breaking stories on the basketball side. And the local coverage from Alec Lasley, Kyler Staley, and Zach Browning. You can catch something new every day at thehoosier.com. Go there. Sign up today.
Welcome back to the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, subbing in for Mr. Jim Coyle. And appreciate you being along with us here today, those in the chat and those listening on the airways throughout the state of Indiana. We appreciate your listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio and to follow up on thehoosier.com. It's a great setup there at thehoosier.com, and a lot of great writers and guys that do a great job in terms of providing the in-depth coverage that they do. I'm pleased to have joined thehoosier.com as their lead analyst there for thehoosier.com, as well as on3.com. As you get all that information, we talked about on 3's information and rivals, but $1 first month, 50% off for the rest of the year. You can't beat it. Get over there today and pick up your subscription and get all the behind the scenes look at everything you can think of, including all the breakdowns of video that I've done on Indiana's 22 commitments thus far for this 2025-26 recruiting class, a class that's shaping up to be a dandy of a class. If we can get them all to December and signed on the dotted line, you got to feel pretty happy with that class and the foundation that Coach Signetti is building under himself for the last two recruiting classes. He's done a tremendous job, as well as the coaches and everything. So get over there today, pick up your subscription, and be a part of thehoosier.com, where you get everything that I said, as well as the Hoosier football tailgate, as we will motor back into live streaming next Thursday at 7:30 as we start gearing towards the seasonal aspect of things. We'll start doing 2 times a week. That first week of the Old Dominion week, where we will broadcast on Mondays and Thursday nights. Mondays, I like to give you a breakdown of what occurred on Saturday, good, bad, or indifferent. Try to provide some video aspect of those games and such. And then on Thursdays, we do a deep dive in previewing the next opponent for the Indiana Hoosiers, breaking down offense, defense, and where the Hoosiers and how the Hoosiers stack up with that next opponent. So look for the Hoosier football tailgate on Mondays and Thursdays here in a couple weeks. Next week, we're back. And until that first week of the season, just once a week on Thursday night at 7:30. And we'll start breaking it in for the 25 football season as we start breaking down initially some of these opponents that Indiana's going to face here in the 25-26 season. Big Ten Media Days are closely approaching. I already talked about Big 12 already having theirs media day. I do believe the ACC may be up next. You can catch a lot of these media days on ESPN or via the ESPN Plus. The Big Ten Network will have wall-to-wall coverage. And with it being in Las Vegas, we're all going to have, from my perspective, going to have to watch the broadcast of that. But the Big Ten Network will be live each and every day out in Vegas. It looks like they're going to be, it'll be 1 to 4 p.m. Of scheduled time, Vegas being, I believe, 3 hours behind. So they'll start out there at 10 a.m., but here on the East Coast will be 1 p.m. But Big Ten Network will have all that coverage for you as well. And right now, how it works and how it breaks down for the media days on Tuesday, Indiana will be one of the teams representing the Big Ten there. Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Nebraska, Ohio State, and Rutgers will kick off the media days there in Vegas. And I was going to go. I was hoping to go. I even got clearance from the wife, which, as you guys know, is the most important thing when it comes to getting clearance to go to Vegas. You know, that one's a little tougher to get clearance for, but I got the clearance, was planning on going and doing, being a part of the media days out there. I went to the media days in Indy, and it was phenomenal. Phenomenal setup and how the Big Ten ran it and everything associated with it. But last minute here had some things creep into the schedule that is going to keep me from being out in Vegas and not only covering the Big Ten media days, but also maybe partaking in some of the casino fun as well. But like I said, Indiana will be out there. I believe they are taking Fisher, Surratt, and I believe Kamara are going to be the representatives of Indiana this year at the media days. Day 2 of the media days will feature Minnesota, Northwestern, Oregon, Penn State, Washington, and Wisconsin. Pretty good list of teams there. We already talked about Penn State and still having them as their number 1 ranked team, which is I thought a little bit shocking to be honest. But day 2 is on the 23rd. And then on Thursday, July 24th, Iowa, Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, UCLA, and USC. And Coach Barry Odom's first time representing the Purdue Boilermakers at Media Day. He has had to revamp the entire roster there at Purdue. I would say even more so than what Coach Cignetti did at Indiana. I think he's had to bring in somewhere in the neighborhood of over 50 players via the transfer portal and those things. Now the recruiting, I think, is going well for the Boilers. And again, a healthy Purdue team creates a healthy series and rivalry game between Indiana and Purdue, something that we really haven't seen for some time. It's usually one team or the other is so much better than the opponent. We've had some lopsided games, especially like last year. Oh, and I'm sure Purdue has made a mental note of that as well. I'm interested to see, I don't know how you guys feel about this, is all the things centered around Michigan with the cheating scandal. We've got there's a multitude of lawsuits now, Jim Harbaugh being a part of some of them. You know, you had that one assistant who was doing things on the computer as it pertains to information stealing of individuals that got caught doing that and fired. Harbaugh got a show cause penalty from the NCAA on if he ever comes back to coach, as well as others on that staff, Jesse Minter being the other one, who is the defensive coordinator for Harbaugh and his time at Michigan. But that whole thing has died down a little bit. And I know that Michigan is still awaiting some things as it pertains to some of the coaches there and what may or may not happen to the head man, because there's rumors that he may get as much as 5 games for his antics during the cheating scandal there at Notre Dame. We'll wait and see on that, but I do think that'll be a little bit of a topic as it pertains to what may be on the docket for the media days in terms of Michigan and maybe what they'll have to stand and answer for. Yeah, the only thing last year was it wasn't worse. Okay. But anyway, 3-day format. It's first time out there in Vegas. All 18 schools will be there. You got prime time coverage with the Big Ten Network as well. They'll also do a show at 7 p.m. Eastern, kind of a recap of the day. I do think it'll be a unique setup to have a media day in Vegas, but hey, it is what it is when it comes to that. But Indiana well represented. They'll kick off that on Tuesday, July 22nd. You can catch all that on the Big Ten Network at 1 to 4 p.m. here on the East Coast with everything. And hopefully you'll get a chance to enjoy that as well. We'll see how the coaches rank Indiana, which will be big. As you remember, Coach Signetti taking the stage last year where he implicitly said he had only been picked second to last a few other times. And then that year they end up winning the conference. Well, he came pretty darn close to that aspect of things, but came up short. But we'll have to wait and see because we're all ready for Coach Signetti and some of his fun use of the English language is how he likes to get his message across. But you can catch all that on the Big Ten. And if you're like me as a football nut, I like watching those media days because it does, it just keeps the juices flowing for the next season as it comes to that. And hopefully we'll get a chance to see all that. But if you got any questions with all of that, you can look it up on the Big Ten Network as well, and they'll have some of that. And Big Ten Plus is another thing that is a great service and such. We talked about the Cream and Crimson Studios that will be doing some producing for the Big Ten Plus Network when there are games being held on Big Ten Plus Network there on Indiana. So a lot of things happening right now in the month of July as it pertains to college football as we gear up for the start of the season. We're going to step away, take another break here. We're going to come back and talk about those 5 players to watch for the 2025 season, as well as talk Heisman Trophy candidates and potential odds. All right here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio Network. We'll see you here after this message.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Welcome back to the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and I am hosting or sub-hosting for Jim Coyle, our buddy, who will be back at it with you next week as he enjoys some time off to recharge his batteries as well. Everybody deserves a little bit of that time off. Don't forget to visit the sponsors of our show, The Hard Truth, of course, Distillery down there in the beautiful Brown County area. And then Andy Moore Honda. Those gentlemen, if you're looking for a car, head on over to Andy Moore Honda as well. But we appreciate you listening and being here with us today. And I saw this one comment about living in Vegas by Russell. If you're single and living in Vegas, to live comfortably, you need about $95K. Well, that's probably true because I don't think it's very cheap living in Vegas. But you would hope that would be somewhat cheap because the casinos and stuff, you would think that they would have, pretty good taxes there that would favor them with the help of the casinos. But I'm not sure how generous the casinos are in Vegas. I think it's a great place to visit. However, I'm not quite sure I'd live there, especially right now, because this is their hottest time of the year. 100 degrees on average, I believe, at this time of the year. Heading into this 2025 season, I think there's one thing that you can count on. There's going to be some guys that you want to keep an eye on this year as it pertains to Indiana and their prospects of getting back to the college football playoffs. Their journey there this year will be just as tough as it was last year. No Michigan, Ohio State. You pick up Oregon and Penn State, all of which will be very, very difficult task as they're on the road going out to Oregon and into Happy Valley. But Indiana, I do think there are some players to, that we all know of, but I think are important to reemphasize why they are some of the top players that need to be watched, because they will impact in some ways what type of season Indiana does or does not have in the hopper for them to be successful. Of course, the big transfer, Alberto Mendoza's brother. I can't do it as good as Jim. I apologize. But there's no question the quarterback position is always a key position to keep watch on. You've got Fernando Mendoza coming in from Cal, where he threw for over 3,000 yards a year ago. He was sacked over 41 times, though. That was one of the negatives for the young man. He's being recognized in ESPN's draft analysis as a top 5 quarterback. And so you can see that he's getting some of that national attention. Now, that doesn't mean, at Cal last year was kind of a little bit under the radar, had to earn his way up through the ranks of the depth chart. But now that he's in Indiana and he does have some of the things that a lot of quarterbacks you love to see them have. He's got mobility. He's got the ability to throw the football down the field with some accuracy. But there's no question Indiana's offense and therefore their ability to win ball games, just like last year with Curtis Rourke, will depend upon what type of season Fernando Mendoza has. And definitely somebody that you're going to enjoy watching or going to be a part of those players to watch for this coming season. Elijah Surratt, no question there, but I also think at the wide receiver group, Omar Cooper, I think, is another young man that has shown brief signs of being a really good wide receiver. If he can put it all together, boy, I think they've got 2 legit threats there at the wide receiver position. Of course, up front, when you talk about defense, Mikal Kamara, again, he's a first-team preseason All Big Ten pick. They're moving him in a position. He's going from, a true down position now to being ability to play up or move around at one of their outside linebacker positions. He had a tremendous season last year of force on the defensive line. Can he not only duplicate last year's record or success on the field, but can he improve upon it and be that premier pass rusher that he can be? There's no question that there's that chance that he is one of those guys that will help make that defense go, and they need him to have a big year on defense and duplicate what he did a year ago in terms of his success in rushing the passer. Of course, you can't not mention Aiden Fisher and D'Angelo Pons, as those two are the two names you would associate with Indiana's defense. D'Angelo, again, first team preseason All Big Ten. He's ranked number 24 on the PFF Top 50 and number 3 cornerback nationally by PFF. He has a great year. There's no question. He's probably heading out and going into the draft. And then anchoring that defense, our quarterback, Aiden Fisher. Those are some guys that we definitely, your eyes automatically go to, and your success really depends on how well they play each Saturday, week in, week out. But I want to go a little bit further than that. I want to talk a little bit more about those guys that may be under the radar, but I do think are critical for this year's season on both sides of the football. Again, Indiana's offensive line, probably going to be one of the better offensive line that Indiana's put on the field to start the year. They have depth, and they also have, I believe, legit Big Ten type of offensive linemen. There's no question. Is Carter Smith going to have a breakout year? Second team preseason All Big Ten, will be a critical component in protecting Mendoza. But, will he have a year where his game play is elevated and gets better and becomes a dominant foe along the offensive line? There are so many other gentlemen up there. Coogan as well, coming from Notre Dame, the leader of the offensive line, something that he enjoys being is that leader up front. The man is 6'5", 310 as a center. That is a big, big body in front of your quarterback. And if he can have the type of year and be the leader that we think he can be, I do think that bodes well for success for Indiana as well in that regard. But those two guys up front, when you look at it, are definitely guys to keep an eye on. And then add in there a guy that's not getting a lot of, I don't know if it's publication or pub or anything of that magnitude or talked about enough, but Roman Hemby, the transfer that Indiana got from Maryland, I do think he's going to be a big boost to Indiana's run game and a great complementary to Henderson Black in the running back room, because those two guys not only are big physical backs, but they also have some speed to them. And what I like about Hemby is his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, something that Indiana utilized at times, but not to the extent that I think they could. And I do think Hemby provides that for them. So another guy that in that backfield, to me, you have to count on is Hemby. He has to have a big year. He's had big years at Maryland. He's actually hurt Indiana when he was at Maryland. He's had some big games against them, but we really need him to have a great year in the running department for Indiana. So Indiana has a balanced attack, because if they get too one-sided in their approach, it's not going to bode well week in, week out. So they've got to be able not only to throw the football with accuracy, they've got to be able to block up front in the run game as well as pass pro. And the big sauce for Indiana on offense is their RPO game. So again, those guys are going to be a key component to Indiana's success up front as we head into the 2025 year. Then a couple other ones to keep an eye on defense. Hosa Wheeler, the transfer that they got from Western Kentucky. Here's a guy that was a world beater there in the Sun Belt. Indiana was able to secure him early on, had a good spring. I think he's a guy that will be a good complement to what they have there now, as well as Kamara. But he's a guy that is a big, strong, and physical D tackle. He can really run, he runs really well along the line of scrimmage, but I like his physicality that he brings to the table. And in the Big Ten, you better have a guy that is physical at the point of attack, kind of like CJ West was a year ago. The physicality, be able to ward off double teams, be able to get off single blocks and make plays are critical for that defensive line to be as stout as they were a year ago. And I do believe they have upgraded their defensive line. So I do like the fact those guys are kind of under the radar guys to kind of focus your eyes on and watch how they play during the year outside of the guys that we know of. And they're kind of the no doubters when you talk about Indiana football. You got those guys. And then the other person on defense for me that I think is a key get for Indiana was Lewis Moore. Having him come back from Mississippi, a very good safety. I think he will be a great fit in Brian Haynes' defense. I know that he's got excellent football IQ. He does a great job in his disguising of coverages and such, but he's a great, great player in the open field. But he's one, if he can have a great year back there in the secondary to complement D'Angelo and be a guy that can make some big plays and interceptions and such, boy, that defense for Indiana, I do think they can be lights out again this year as they were last year. And last year, we didn't even think really that much about defense other than the fact that they had a chance to be halfway decent, but we didn't know. Well, heck, they were number 2 in the country, number 1 in the country in rush defense at times. And this year, with that group of guys, I just feel like, man, oh man, they have a great chance to be a top defense again. So that's another one that I think lends itself to keep an eye on for this year at that position. And if there's one freshman that I think can really help Indiana this year is LeBron Bond, the wide receiver, true freshman. He's got track speed. He's a fast guy. He can take the top off the defense. He could be that vertical threat for Indiana. So those are some of the underneath guys that I think Indiana will need to have play their best football this year to get themselves back to where they want to be. And I don't think there's any question that on offense, that the offensive line depth and the top 5 guys there that Coach Bobstead is going to put up there, led by Pat Coogan, is going to be some of the best top 5 players that Indiana's had at the offensive line. And I do think that Bob Bobstead has done a tremendous job in his approach to it. I think he's put offensive lines over the last 2 years out on the field where he's taken with what he's got and put together a great group of guys to get the job done. But this year's team up front, I do think they got some big time bodies and some Big Ten looking bodies that it will be the best offensive line Indiana's had in quite some time. And that bodes well for people like Hemby and Mendoza and all that. So I do think Indiana, as it pertains as a team, is situated very well. I do think that those guys are going to be that key, the no-doubters that we talked about earlier in that top 5, Fisher, Pons, Kamara, Surratt, and Mendoza. Those 5 are going to be vitally important, but the supporting cast around those guys is as more important to their success. And that's where you get the Carter Smith, the Himbees, the Hosa Wheelers. You get Lewis Moore, and then potentially as a freshman, LeBron Bond. And that, to me, of that supporting cast is vitally important for that 5 guys that we talked about earlier having great years. And I'm sure we could sit around and think of more, but I do think those are the top guys to watch for this upcoming season. And I hope Surratt has a breakout year, and I do think he will. I think he's one of those guys that is naturally gifted. He's not a burner by any stretch of the imaginations, but he's just one of those guys that gets open. And it'll be interesting to see the success Indiana has with back shoulder throws, because that's the one thing Curtis Rourke did very well last year was back shoulder throws. And we'll see if Mendoza can duplicate some of that as we head into this 2025 season. And as if anything with any team with Indiana, staying injury-free, knock on wood, is going to be important, because I do think they do have better depth overall. But again, the healthier they can stay at these key positions, the better off they're going to be overall. Like it, love it. Let me know in chat your thoughts on those individuals, especially those that were kind of under the radar. Is the coach right on, or is the coach full of you know what? Let me know there in your chat room as we slip away to take this last break here. When we come back, we'll talk Heisman Trophy. Who are some of the leading candidates and whether or not they are a popular choice, or is there a football aspect to it that lends it to them being a part of being on that board as a Heisman Trophy watch list candidate? We're going to talk all of that right after we get back from this break here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. When it comes to apparel and promotions, FreeThink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. FreeThink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. FreeThink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what FreeThink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, sitting in for our beloved Jim Coyle. Saw some guys there with some of their responses to that, just what I had talked about there. We talked a little bit about Kamara's move to linebacker in that regard, as well as the defense continuing to potentially be one of the best again in the country. I do think that is a definitely possibility with this Indiana defense as well. And then, of course, you add the offense to it. And do they do a college football repay, as Robert has indicated there. I love the enthusiasm. And who would have thought we would be sitting here talking about Indiana football like we're talking about them the last couple I don't know what happened there, but the gremlins are finally have got me. So hopefully I'm back in live as we get ready to go into that. And I'm sure I apologize for that. Is everything there back to normal? Lost me altogether. You sure did. And hopefully this is all coming through correctly as we, for whatever reason, we just went completely dark on the YouTube channel. Hopefully this is coming through, but Heisman Trophy talk. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday, getting away from the personality contest. Thank you there, Robert. Appreciate you, buddy. And back to being more about the skill set as opposed to the popular aspect of things. Right now, quarterbacks rule and all this, the top three, we talked about this a little bit. Arch Manning from Texas, he's getting 5-1 odds in Vegas, and a plus 700 on FanDuel and BetGM. Again, there's a legacy component to all this, but he's at 5-1. Garrett Nussmeier from LSU is 8-1. He's an interesting choice there. I do think he has the skill set to be a top quarterback, but consistency has plagued him a little bit at LSU. Cabe Klubnik from Clemson, he settles in there at 9-1. And ESPN has him as their top projection. Now, that young man threw for 36 touchdowns last year. I think he's a great leader. You watch him, he's competitive and such, but he has made some critical errors at critical times in games. So right now, all the early favorites, surprise, surprise, are quarterbacks. Now you add in there some of the top tier two guys. And here's one that I think to keep an eye on. Jeremiah Smith, from the wide receiver from Ohio State. Man, oh man, that kid had a great year last year as a freshman. He had 1,315 yards in receptions, 15 TDs, freshman of the year for the Buckeyes. And the other one would, again, the two other quarterbacks, Lagway from Florida. I really think he'd be more of a dark horse. And Drew Aller from Penn State would be the other guy to keep an eye on with all that. But again, hopefully we get some guys like Jeremiah Love. He has an explosive year. Will he be a Heisman Trophy potential winner? He's probably figures into to be that long shot of a possibility, maybe worth picking up in a possible bet with that. Even Fernando Mendoza is mentioned in this one. He's a real long shot, but over 100-1, I believe, as a possibility. But I do think a guy like the Williams kid from the wide receiver from Alabama, Love from the running back over at Notre Dame. Those guys are definitely keep an eye on. Jeremiah Smith, another wide receiver at Ohio State. Those guys are all worth keeping an eye on, and hopefully we get more of the guys that are deserving of it because of their production on the field and a little less popularity being the deciding factor. Who gets the most pub throughout the year? And we're going to hear a lot about Arch Manning. Let's just get used to it. He's going to be a top of mind topic from day one there in Texas. And hopefully we get more than just that in the Heisman Trophy race, but maybe some guys to put some couple dollars on there. I would like Love as a possibility. Of course, Jeremiah Smith would be another one that I would think would be worth keeping a close eye on, as well as Ryan Williams. But we'll have to wait and see. And as always, no defensive guys listed, which is always surprising to me. I just don't get it, because there's some really good defensive guys in college football again this year. Well, hey, I thank you for joining me here today on another edition of Indiana Sports Radio with Jim Coyle. I'm the host sitting in for Jim Coyle. Thanks again to each and every one of you, and we'll look to see you back here tomorrow, right here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.